Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is a Legacy School writing lesson for Year 6, Week 1. We've already taken a few writing lessons in school, but let's go ahead and just revise a few things that could help our writing out. So for this lesson, you'll need your literacy copybook and the planning handout that I will be attaching as a separate activity on the Seesaw app. So, what kinds of figurative language have you studied so far? So we've studied alliteration, which is a writing technique in which the same initial sound is repeated in a series of words quite close to each other. So we have the example, for the first time in forever, there will be magic and fun. So if you notice, not all of the words in this sentence begin with the F sound or the F sound, but most of them do, and it gives it a nice ring to it. Or Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pepper. Here also most of the words begin with the P sound. And as you can tell, it makes the sentence really, really fun. Hyperbole. The trick of exaggerating something by using extreme language. It must be something impossible. It can be used in songs and adverts. For example, the teacher set us 1,000 pages of homework tonight. So I don't think any of your teachers are giving you literally 1,000 pages of homework to do. But of course, it makes the writing or the reading very interesting. It gives a good expression. Or Red Bull gives you wings. Red Bull doesn't literally give you wings, but it gives you a lot of energy and sometimes it makes you feel like you might want to fly. All right, onomatopoeia. These are words whose pronunciation is similar to their meaning and the sounds they are describing. For example, a cow moos. The actual name of the sound is a moo, and the sound it makes is moo. Also, a snake hisses. So the name of the sound is hiss, and the sound that it literally makes is s. Again, we have splash and crash and bang. These are the names of the sounds and the actual sound that it makes. We have personification, which could be a tricky one, but it makes for very interesting writing. This is giving human characteristics or actions to non-living things or animals. The quality or action must be unique to humans or something that humans or animals can, or the subject or animals cannot do. For example, the wind howled and spat, and the rain battered me relentlessly. So the wind can't literally howl. Only an animal or human can make a howling sound. But here we gave the wind that characteristic of a living thing to make it more interesting. And it makes it easier for the reader to feel emotion or to visualize exactly how severe the wind was blowing. And spat. Only a human or animal can also spit. But here they, and also the rain battered me, which means hit me. So the rain doesn't really batter me. Maybe it can make my clothes wet, but here they're trying to describe how hard the rain was falling. So they said it was battering me. We have idioms. And idioms are an idiom is an expression particular to a region or language, which they have particular meanings not related to the actual literal meaning of the words. For example, time flies. Time doesn't literally have wings and flies, and it's not able to fly away, but here it means that time is running very quickly. The cat's got your tongue, which means you're speechless. It is it is water under the bridge, meaning there was an issue and the issue has been resolved and we're not going to talk about it anymore. You're driving me up the wall, which means you're driving me crazy. And break a leg. It doesn't literally mean go out and break your leg. It means good luck, used in this sense. We also have similes. A simile compares two unlike things using the words like and as. For example, as useless as a chocolate teapot. Why is it useless? Because it would melt, of course. If you add something hot to a teapot made out of chocolate, then it would melt. So it's pretty useless. And he's going to be taller than a tree. So now let's look at metaphors. They're very similar to similes, but they don't use like and as. So it says metaphors, like similes, compare unlike things, or two unlike things, but don't use the words like, or as, or if. Instead, a metaphor implies one thing is something else. So for example, all the world is a stage. So if the world is a stage, means everybody is watching. I'm the whisper in the wind. Are you literally the whisper in the wind? No. But what does this tell us? Can you think about that? And the moon's sun was a huge fireball. The moon or the sun were a huge fireball. Was the moon literally a huge fireball? No. But what does that tell us? It tells us that the moon was very bright. So let's think back. Why do we actually use figurative language? We use it to appeal to the reader's senses, their imagination, and their sense of humor as well. Like I said, it makes for very interesting reading. It's always good to use figurative language in your writing. And now we're going to go plan a story, and I want you to actually try to use as much figurative language as you can in this story. What do you think a good story needs, though? We can use a story mountain to help us plan that out. So a good story needs a strong introduction or opening. It needs a good build-up where we set the scene and introduce the characters and describe them. It needs a problem or action or an issue, which is the main part of the story. Any good movie and any good story has to have a problem in it, whether it's Cinderella and not having a dress to go to the ball, or it's an action movie where somebody is kidnapped and you need to get them back, or a robbery, or anything like that. Any good story has a problem in it. And of course, after the problem, we need to have a resolution or a solution to that problem, how that problem is solved. And then, just to top it all off, a strong ending. Today we're going to be talking about how to create a great opening to your story and a great ending. So, these are ways to open a story. Once Upon a Time or Once, which is a classic. We use them mostly for fairy tales. We can also open up our story with a question. For example, who could possibly live in this house? Description: the sun peered through the leaves, the rays coming to a halt on the shiny brown hair of the young girl, staring intently at the lake in the distance. So if you notice, this sentence is actually quite descriptive, and it's a very interesting way to start a story because it gets the reader wondering, why are they describing this girl so vividly? And at the same time, it helps them visualize or imagine what this girl looks like. We can start off with some action. Jack jumped over the fence and sped after the man. Oh, sorry, please excuse the spelling error. It should be man. Dialogue. Dialogue is two or more people speaking in a text. So we can start off with, "Come back here," Jack bellowed as he jumped over the fence and sped after the man. So this is similar to the action sequence, but here we started with some dialogue. We can also start off with a sound effect like bang, which is onomatopoeia if you remember what we talked about earlier. Bang! Jack's feet hit the ground as he jumped over the fence and sped after the man. So as you can see, it's very exciting and it gets the reader interested and wanting to know what's going to happen next, what's happening to begin with, and what will happen next. We can also start with a fronted adverbial. All of a sudden, which is an adverb of time. Frantically he splashed. Frantically is an adverb of manner. Sometimes it helps to have a great imagination, which is an adverb of frequency. Sometimes is an adverb of frequency. And everywhere she looked, trees were closing in on her. Everywhere here is an adverb of place. So a fronted adverbial is when you start off a sentence or a paragraph with an adverb. So a good story also needs a great ending, and let's talk about some of the ways you can do that. Let's take Goldilocks and the Three Bears as an example. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So we can end the story on a cliffhanger, which is my favorite way to end a story. So this leaves the reader wanting more. You end the story on an unexpected note. So the Papa Bear chased Goldilocks into the deep dark forest, and Baby Bear heard a shriek of terror, then silence. This is a cliffhanger because we're not telling the reader exactly what happens next. We're leaving them wanting to figure out what happens next, but they can assume, of course, what's going to happen. We can end it in a traditional way, but with a twist. So instead of saying they all lived happily ever after, we can say they lived hungrily ever after. All right, because of course Goldilocks ate their porridge. We can end with a moral ending. An ending with a moral to the story, so you actually are learning something from it. So for example, Goldilocks learned that it was not polite or respectful to enter others' homes or other people's homes uninvited, and brought the Three Bears breakfast the next morning with a big apology card. So that's a good way to end on a moral note. And you can end the story also with a lesson learned, like never leave your door unlocked. We can also take the story back to the title, which is probably the easiest way to end the story on an interesting note. So for example, and that is how Goldilocks met the Three Bears. Please excuse the spelling error again. We can end with a question, which gets the reader thinking and interested. Did Goldilocks learn her lesson never to enter a house uninvited ever again? Or if you are really good, it was all a dream, or was it? So this is our exercise for today. We're going to write a story plan and we're going to write a story plan and have a really strong opening paragraph. Your opening is so important as it makes the reader want to read on, and first impressions are so important. A strong opening can make an examiner look at your work in a favorable manner. Today we're going to write a story plan under the following title, The Enchanted Forest. So your story must be about the enchanted forest. And don't forget to include any figurative language in your description of settings or characters. All right? So that is our lesson for today, and I can't wait to see your work. Again, we are going to write a story with a very strong opening, choosing from any of the examples that we discussed, and we also want a very strong ending. Again, you can choose any of the examples that we talked about. Thank you.